Alien princess fears marrying ruthless human, but everything changes up close. She had loved this view since she was young. Today it felt fragile. Behind her, the council chamber doors closed with a quiet echo. The voices of elders still rang in her ears. Calm voices, careful voices, voices that had just changed her life forever. The decision is final, the High Counselor had said. The union is necessary. She was a princess. She had been raised to be strong, but no training could prepare her for this. She was to marry a human, not just any human, a human commander. The stories about humans were everywhere. Every young noble on Velrith had heard them. Humans were not the largest species. They were not the oldest. They did not live the longest, yet the galaxy feared them. Humans fought wars differently. They did not retreat when logic said they should. They did not surrender when losses grew high. When threatened, they became focused, efficient, unstoppable. Other species called them ruthless. Celira had grown up believing those stories. She had seen the recordings, human fleets moving with perfect order, silent ships advancing without hesitation. Entire conflicts ended the moment humans arrived. Victory followed them like a shadow. And now she was expected to bind her life to one of them. A soft chime sounded behind her. "Princess," her attendant Lyrian said gently. "The envoy from the human coalition has entered the system." Celira closed her eyes. "So soon," she whispered. "Their flagship will dock within the hour." Celira straightened. Fear was a luxury she could not show. Her people were small in number. Their worlds were rich, peaceful, and vulnerable. A rising external threat had already taken 2 border systems. Velrith could not fight alone. The humans could. That was the truth the council would not speak out loud. "Prepare the reception hall," Celira said. Her voice was steady. "I will greet them." Lyrian hesitated. "Your Highness, are the rumors true about the commander?" Celira did not answer right away. She remembered the name. Commander Elias Ward, a human strategist known for ending conflicts fast. Known for decisive actions. Known for never losing a campaign once he committed to it. Some called him a protector. Others called him a monster. "I do not know what is true," Celira finally said, "but I will find out." The Velrith capital station trembled slightly as the human flagship arrived. It was massive, larger than any Velrith vessel, yet shaped with clean, simple lines. No decoration, no glowing banners. It looked like it had been built for one purpose only: to endure. Celira stood at the head of the reception hall, surrounded by nobles and guards. The air felt heavy. Even the bravest warriors shifted uneasily. The docking doors opened. Human delegates entered in perfect formation. They wore dark uniforms, no visible weapons, their movements calm and controlled. Their eyes scanned the room with quiet awareness. Then he stepped forward. Commander Elias Ward. He was taller than Celira expected, broad-shouldered, his dark hair cut short. His face was calm, unreadable. His eyes were sharp but not cruel. He stopped several steps away and bowed, not deeply but respectfully. "Princess Celira of Velrith," he said. His voice was steady and clear. "I thank you for receiving us." Celira felt every gaze turn to her. She stepped forward. "Commander Ward," she replied, "you are welcome on Velrith." Their eyes met. She had expected something cold, something threatening. Instead, she saw focus, control. A man who measured the world carefully. Nothing about him felt wild or violent. That confused her more than fear ever had. The formal introductions ended quickly. Humans were efficient even in ceremony. Soon, Celira found herself walking beside Elias through the grand hall, accompanied only by translators and a few guards. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Elias spoke. "I understand this union was not your choice." Celira stopped walking. That was not how political meetings usually began. She turned to face him. "You speak plainly, Commander." "I prefer honesty," he said. "It avoids misunderstandings." Her heart beat faster. "Then you know I fear what this represents." "I do," Elias replied, "and I do not blame you." That answer unsettled her. "You are different from what I expected," Celira admitted before she could stop herself. Elias gave a small nod. "I hear that often." She studied him carefully. "Are the stories false, then, about human ruthlessness?" He considered her question. "No," he said at last. "They are incomplete." Celira frowned. "Explain." "Humans do not seek conflict," Elias said. "But when conflict finds us, we end it quickly, with as little loss as possible. That is not how the galaxy sees it." He met her gaze. "The galaxy only sees the end." The words stayed with her. Later that night, Celira sat alone in her chambers. The lights were dim, her thoughts would not slow. The human commander had not threatened her. He had not demanded obedience. He had not spoken of power or dominance. Instead, he had spoken of honesty. That frightened her in a different way. A soft alert sounded on her console. Incoming transmission, council priority. She activated it. The High Counselor appeared, his expression tense. "Princess, our sensors have detected unknown fleet movement near the outer systems." Celira's breath caught. "The threat? Yes, they are advancing faster than expected. How long do we have?" "Days," the counselor said quietly. "Perhaps less." The truth settled over her like a weight. Velrith would fall without help. She ended the transmission and stared at the ceiling. So this was the price of peace. Elsewhere on the station, Elias stood alone in a quiet observation room. Stars drifted past the wide viewport. A human officer approached. "Commander, are you certain about this approach?" "Yes," Elias said. "She fears us." "Of course she does," he replied. "Fear is reasonable." The officer hesitated. "And the Union?" Elias' reflection stared back at him from the glass. "It must be her choice or it means nothing." He turned away from the stars. Outside, unseen, distant forces were already moving. And Princess Celira, who feared marrying a ruthless human, stood at the edge of a future she did not yet understand. The Velrith sky was calm again the next morning, yet inside the capital, the air felt charged with tension. Princess Celira walked slowly through the corridors of the royal palace, her silver eyes tracing the familiar patterns of carved stone and glowing crystal. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same. Commander Elias Ward had remained in the palace overnight, his presence unspoken but undeniable. She had expected him to be cold, distant, perhaps even hostile. Instead, he had been quiet, careful, and observant, watching but never overstepping. Celira did not yet trust him. Not fully. Fear lingered beneath the surface, as did curiosity. What kind of human was this, truly? Was he capable of the ruthlessness the stories promised, or was that only a mask? A soft chime echoed in her chambers. Her attendant, Lyrian, appeared with a tablet. "Princess," Lyrian said, bowing slightly, "Commander Ward requests an audience with you. He says it is regarding the fleet movements." Celira hesitated. The humans moved quickly. She did not like the thought of being hurried, but she had no choice. The outer systems were under threat, and the decisions they made now could decide the fate of Velrith. "Very well," she said. "Send him to the observation hall." The observation hall was quiet and spacious, with tall windows giving a clear view of the Velrith starfields. Planets hung in the distance, small and fragile. Celira entered first, her hands folded, her mind racing. Elias was already there, standing near the controls for the fleet overview. He turned slightly as she approached. "Princess Celira," he said, bowing his head just once. "Thank you for meeting me." "Commander," she replied, "what do you wish to discuss?" Elias gestured to the holographic display of Velrith's outer systems. "Your council informed me of the approaching fleets," he began. "I have reviewed their movement patterns. There is a risk they intend to attack border settlements first. They will test defenses and attempt to slow any response." Celira frowned. "And you believe this is true?" Elias nodded. "Yes, the calculations are clear. Any hesitation could cost many lives." Celira's stomach tightened. She had expected him to speak of strategy, of war. She had expected cold efficiency. Instead, he spoke of lives. The human did not calculate only victory, he considered cost and consequence. "And what do you suggest?" she asked. Elias turned to face her fully. "We cannot wait. Defensive fleets must be repositioned. Evacuation protocols should be initiated for civilian populations near the borders, and if we act carefully, we can contain the threat with minimal loss." Celira blinked. This was not what she had imagined. She had pictured the stories perfectly, a ruthless human commander issuing orders without thought for anything but power. But this was careful, precise, and human. "You are not what the stories say," she said quietly. Elias' eyes met hers. "Stories rarely tell the whole truth, Princess. Humans can be ruthless, yes, but we can also be disciplined, precise, and compassionate when it matters." Celira felt a strange flutter of relief and unease. She wanted to believe him, yet her fear clung stubbornly to her thoughts. Over the next hours, the two of them moved through the plans for the outer systems. Celira observed him closely. Every motion was deliberate, every decision weighed carefully. When she questioned his orders, he explained patiently, never raising his voice. When she pointed out a possible risk, he adapted the plan without hesitation. It was clear that he valued input from others, yet something about him unsettled her. He was too calm, too precise. It was as if nothing could rattle him. During a break, she asked him directly, "Commander Ward, are humans always this fearless?" He paused, considering. "No, fear exists in every species. It is a natural response. What humans do is choose action despite fear. We cannot let fear paralyze us." Celira studied him in silence. There was no arrogance in his tone, only certainty, a certainty that frightened her almost as much as the rumors had. Later that evening, the council gathered to discuss preparations. Celira stood beside the High Counselor, listening to their voices argue. Plans to reinforce borders, to evacuate civilians, to strengthen the capital's defenses, all of it was measured and cautious, yet also necessary. Elias entered quietly. The room seemed to grow still in his presence, and several council members shifted uneasily. "Commander Ward," the High Counselor said, "your methods are unusual for a human. You emphasize caution over aggression." Elias nodded. "Aggression without calculation leads to unnecessary loss. Efficiency is achieved when strategy protects life, not just ends a conflict." Murmurs spread through the room. Some elders looked uneasy. Others whispered in quiet admiration. Celira noticed her own heart beat faster. Finally, she spoke, surprising even herself. "Commander Ward is correct. We must act to protect our people, not to punish our enemies." The council fell silent. The human's reputation had been built on stories of conquest, yet here he was, guiding them toward protection and safety. After the council meeting, Celira returned to the observation hall. The stars were brighter tonight, sharper and colder. Elias was already there, alone. "You think too much," he said gently, as if reading her mind. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "You are trying to measure me against stories," he said. "But stories are not reality. You will see more if you look, not listen." Celira hesitated. The truth was that she wanted to believe him. She wanted to see that humans could be more than fear and war, but trust was difficult. "I fear you," she admitted softly. "I do not know if I can trust a human completely." Elias nodded, understanding in his eyes. "That is natural. Trust is earned, not demanded. You will see the truth in actions, not words." His calm honesty touched her more than she expected. For the first time, fear did not dominate her thoughts. Curiosity did. She wanted to see his actions, to understand him, to understand humans. The next day brought the first real test. Reports came in of a small fleet attempting to breach Velrith's outer defenses. Sensors showed that they moved quickly, but predictably. Celira watched as Elias took command of the defense coordination. His voice was quiet, firm, precise. Orders were given, shields repositioned, patrol ships redirected. Communication lines opened. In the observation hall, Celira felt a strange mix of awe and relief. Every move was calculated, every risk considered, yet nothing was wasted. They were defending lives, not demonstrating power. The attack fleet moved closer. Velrith's defenders engaged them, and the first skirmish began. Celira saw the humans act, not with reckless force, but with skill, timing, and coordination. For the first time, she realized something important. The stories had been true in one sense: humans could be ruthless. But that ruthlessness was reserved for threats that mattered, for protecting people, for ensuring survival. She watched a small patrol ship break from formation to rescue a civilian transport trapped near the outer edges. Elias had directed the maneuver. Every life mattered. Celira's chest tightened. She had feared a monster. But here was someone who measured every action, not for glory, not for fear, but for life itself. As the engagement ended successfully, she approached him. "You saved them," she said, voice soft. Elias shook his head slightly. "We all did." Humans, Velrith defenders, every species that acts to protect matters. No one is alone in this. She studied him closely, noticing the faint lines of concentration on his face. No arrogance, no pride, only focus. "You are different," she said again. "I am human," he replied simply, "and humans do what is necessary, but what is necessary is not always what the galaxy thinks it is." For the first time, Celira felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps the future she had feared could be different. Perhaps the human she was meant to marry was not a monster at all. And yet a quiet voice in her mind whispered caution. She had only seen a glimpse. The galaxy was vast. Humans were complex. Trust, she reminded herself, must grow slowly. That night, Celira stood again at the crystal window. The The stars burned brightly, distant and cold. But she did not feel fear, not entirely. For the first time, she felt curiosity and perhaps even something like respect. Somewhere out there, the human commander watched over the fleet. Somewhere he planned carefully, acted decisively, and protected those who could not protect themselves. Princess Celira realized something crucial. The galaxy was full of stories, but truth was far stranger and far more powerful. She would learn it, one action at a time. And with that thought, she allowed herself to hope. The stars outside Velrith glowed cold and distant, but inside the palace, a storm of worry pressed against every wall. Reports had come in that a hostile fleet was approaching faster than expected. Intelligence suggested they were not just testing defenses this time. They were moving to strike. Princess Celira stood in the observation hall once more, her eyes fixed on the holographic display. Ships of all shapes and sizes moved like silver fish in the black waters of space. Her fingers trembled slightly as she traced the path of the hostile fleet. Beside her, Commander Elias Ward watched calmly, his posture straight and rigid. His eyes scanned the information with precision, calculating, analyzing, predicting. Every motion he made seemed effortless, yet there was an invisible weight in his presence that made the room feel safer. "You are not afraid?" Celira asked, breaking the tense silence. Elias turned to her, his expression steady. "Fear is normal," he said. "Paralysis is not." She swallowed. The words made sense, yet they also made her heart pound. Humans seemed able to carry fear and act anyway. She envied that control. "Will the fleet reach us before our defenses are ready?" she asked. Elias shook his head slightly. "Not if we act immediately." "But we cannot waste time. Every moment counts." Celira nodded. She had learned from him already that humans measured every second as if it were a weapon. Hesitation could cost lives. The fleet arrived faster than anyone anticipated. Velrith's outer patrols reported engagements almost immediately. Small skirmishes flared along the border and alarms rang through the capital station. Celira's pulse raced. She had never witnessed space battle firsthand. Explosions of energy lights danced across the starfield hologram. Ships moved with incredible speed, dodging, weaving, striking, and retreating. Beside her, Elias issued commands calmly. "Redirect the secondary defense line to Grid 5. Civilian evacuation convoy Gamma, accelerate course 2, deploy interceptors to outer perimeter. Shield arrays, full power now." Every command was precise, every move calculated. Celira noticed that despite the chaos, Elias never raised his voice. He did not panic. He did not falter. Her fear began to twist into something else. "Oh, Princess Celira," Elias said gently, as if reading her thoughts, "watch closely. The human strength you fear is not cruelty. It is focus, precision, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves." She swallowed hard. The stories had warned her of ruthless humans, but she realized now that ruthlessness could be protection. It could be strategy. It could be the difference between life and death. The battle intensified. Reports of damaged ships, of injured crews, of civilian transports under fire flooded in. Celira felt her stomach tighten. She wanted to turn away, but she could not. She could not ignore the lives at risk. Then came the most worrying report. A civilian transport carrying families was trapped near the edge of the system, surrounded by enemy fighters. Sensors showed the ship would not survive long without immediate assistance. Elias did not hesitate. "Prepare rescue teams." "I will lead the operation personally." Celira froze. "Lead personally." "Commander Ward," she began, her voice shaking. "It is too dangerous. You cannot." "I can," he interrupted gently with no anger. "Every life matters, Princess, especially those who cannot defend themselves." Before she could argue further, he activated his small command shuttle. It leapt into the black expanse, small but fast, weaving between enemy fighters. Celira's heart raced. He was risking himself for others. That was human strength. That was something no story could have prepared her for. Minutes felt like hours. The observation hall was silent except for soft alerts and the hum of machinery. Celira watched as the shuttle dodged energy blasts and returned fire in calculated bursts. Then she saw it. The transport, surrounded and cornered, slowly began to move again, guided by Elias' shuttle. One by one, the enemy fighters were forced to retreat. The relief in her chest was immediate. They were safe. Lives had been protected. Elias returned to the observation hall, calm as ever. Not a single hair out of place, not a single motion wasted. And yet Celira could see the intensity behind his eyes, the focus, the care, the human determination. "They are safe," he said simply. You risked yourself for them," Celira whispered. Her voice trembled slightly. "Why?" Elias looked at her, expression steady but something softer in his gaze. "Because they could not protect themselves, because protecting life is what humans do when it matters. That is what it means to be strong." Celira realized something she had not admitted to herself. Humans were strong not because they conquered, but because they acted when others could not. The stories had been wrong. Humans were not just ruthless. They were protectors in their own way. Her fear began to fade. Respect began to take its place. The next hours were filled with coordination. Elias guided the fleet with precision. Celira followed his instructions, learning quickly. She directed Velrith defense ships, managed communication channels, and observed human methods of strategy. She began to understand something important. Humans acted with purpose, and every action had meaning. They did not act for glory. They did not act for fear. They acted for results, for life. By the end of the day, the immediate threat was neutralized. The enemy fleet retreated, their strategy failing against human leadership and Velrith coordination. Celira's knees felt weak as she stepped back from the display. She had witnessed something extraordinary. "Commander," she said, voice barely above a whisper, I did not understand. Humans, you are not what I thought." Elias looked at her, calm as ever. "Few understand us at first, Princess. Most fear what they do not know. But actions reveal truth." She studied him closely, her fear melting into something more complicated: curiosity, respect, and perhaps the faint beginnings of trust. That night, Celira could not sleep. She walked to her balcony and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans traveled across the galaxy, acting with focus, protecting lives, making impossible choices. And somewhere in the future, she would have to trust one of them completely. She did not know if she could. Not yet. But she knew this. Elias Ward was not a monster, not the kind the stories had painted. He was something else, something stronger. And for the first time, she wondered if her people's future might be safe. Not because humans were ruthless, but because humans acted with purpose, courage, and unyielding focus. Her fear had not disappeared. It would not disappear entirely. But she began to see something she had never expected. A human could be a protector, a partner, and a shield when it mattered most. Celira whispered to the night, almost to herself, perhaps I misjudged you." Somewhere in the dark reaches of space, Commander Ward rested, unaware that the princess had begun to understand the true meaning of human strength. And in that understanding, the first seeds of trust began to grow. The calm after the battle felt fragile. Velrith's skies were still, yet inside the capital the tension had not lifted. Princess Celira walked through the palace gardens, the soft glow of crystal lights illuminating her silver hair. She moved slowly, her mind heavy with thoughts. The events of the last 2 days had changed everything. She had seen humans not as monsters, but as protectors. She had seen Commander Elias Ward risk himself to save lives, calculate every danger, and act with precision that left no room for error. And yet a shadow of doubt lingered. Her people's safety depended on her choice. The Council had made it clear, if the Union failed, Velrith could fall to future threats. The galaxy was not kind to small worlds that could not defend themselves. Lyrian approached quietly, bowing low. "Princess, the Council wishes to speak with you. They have received a new message from your border defenses. They insist you review it immediately." Celira shook her head. "Not yet, Lyrian. I need time." She walked to the edge of a reflecting pool. The water mirrored the stars above, distant points of light like reminders of the galaxy's vastness. Her heart ached with the weight of responsibility. She was not just a princess, she was the future of her people. And soon she would have to stand beside a human she barely knew. The next morning, the council convened again. This time, the discussion was urgent. Reports of distant fleets had arrived. Even though the immediate threat had been repelled, rival factions in the galaxy were moving quickly. Velrith could not rely on luck alone. "Princess Celira," the High Counselor began, his voice steady but tense, "we must consider canceling the Union. Your personal safety could be at risk, and the alliance is fragile." Celira felt her chest tighten. She had expected this. Every noble in the room was watching her, waiting for her decision. "You speak as if my choice does not matter," she said, her voice firm. "My duty is to protect my people, yes, but my will is not theirs to command." The council exchanged uneasy glances. They had not expected her to speak so boldly. "Princess," one elder said, "we respect your authority, but the humans are unknown. Commander Ward's methods, his temperament, we cannot guarantee the outcome. Are you certain you wish to continue?" Celira looked down at her hands. For a moment she wanted to turn away, to reject the Union and retreat to safety. But then she remembered the battle. The civilian transports saved, the fleet coordinated with precision. Elias Ward had acted not for power or glory, but to protect. Her mind settled. "Yes," she said quietly, "I am certain." After the council meeting, Elias approached her in the quiet of the observation hall. His presence was calm, a steady contrast to the storm of doubt and fear swirling in her mind. "You have made your choice," he said. Celira nodded. "I have, but I need to understand more. I need to know who you are, not as a commander, but as a human. Can I trust that your actions are genuine?" Elias studied her carefully, then nodded. "Trust is earned, princess, not demanded. I will show you, not tell you." She felt a strange warmth at his words. Something in them spoke of honesty, of restraint, and of strength tempered by care. "Very well," she said. "Then we act together, not as political partners, but as people." Elias gave a small nod. "Exactly." Days passed. The fleet needed constant attention. Velrith's outer systems were still unstable, and intelligence suggested that the hostile factions might return. During the preparation, Celira and Elias spent long hours together. He explained fleet strategies, taught her how to read enemy movement patterns, and even showed her how to predict attacks before they happened. She noticed small details about him, the careful way he considered every decision, the subtle respect he showed for others. The way he never wasted effort, yet never demanded blind obedience. At times, she caught him smiling softly at her questions, though always controlled. His calm demeanor began to put her at ease. One evening, as they studied the star charts together, Celira spoke softly. "I admit I feared humans before. I thought you were cruel, unfeeling, but now I see strength differently." Elias looked at her, expression unreadable, yet something gentle in his eyes. "Strength is not cruelty. It is the courage to act when it matters most, even at risk to oneself, and the wisdom to protect those who cannot protect themselves." Celira nodded slowly, feeling a mix of admiration and respect. "And you embody that." For a moment, they shared silence. Outside, the stars moved in steady paths, indifferent to the choices of a princess and a human commander. The next day, Celira received a private message from the High Council. They offered her a chance to cancel the Union entirely. A secret vessel was ready to take her to a safe system. No one would question it. She held the message in her hands, the weight of it heavy. The offer was tempting. It promised safety. It promised distance from uncertainty. Yet she thought of Elias, of his actions, of the way he had protected lives without hesitation. She thought of the civilians whose lives depended on cooperation, on trust, on courage. Her fingers clenched the message. She could not run, not now. Not when everything depended on her decision. That evening she approached Elias privately. The observation hall was empty except for them, stars reflected in the floor beneath their feet. "Commander Ward," she said quietly, "I received an offer. I could leave." "Avoid this everything." Elias regarded her calmly. "And what do you feel?" Celira hesitated. I fear nothing as much as making the wrong choice for my people, but I cannot ignore what I have seen, your actions, your judgment. I trust you." Elias stepped closer, his presence steady and reassuring. "Trust is not a small thing, princess. It must be mutual." She met his gaze. "Then know this, I choose to stand beside you, not because I must, but because I want to, not as duty, but as choice." He nodded, a small, genuine smile touching his lips. "Then we face what comes together." For the first time, Celira felt a sense of relief that was deeper than any safety protocol or political decision. She was not giving up control. She was choosing a path of courage, guided by respect and understanding. The next hours were filled with planning, but the air felt lighter. The princess no longer viewed Elias as an unknown monster. She saw him as a human who acted with purpose, courage, and restraint. That night, as she looked out over the palace gardens, she reflected on her journey. Fear had guided her for most of her life, fear of humans, fear of the galaxy, fear of failing her people. But now she understood something vital. Fear could not define her. Courage, understanding, and trust could, and she had found all three in a human she once thought she could not trust. She whispered to herself softly, Perhaps I misjudged humans entirely, and perhaps the future is stronger than I imagined. Outside, in the quiet of the stars, a human commander planned the next steps. He did not know the depth of trust the princess had placed in him, but he would act as if every life mattered. And in that action, Celira understood. Strength was not just in fleets, in strategy, or in stories. Strength was in the choices they made together, and the courage to face the galaxy side by side. The first light of Velrith's sun shimmered across the palace towers, casting long silver reflections across the courtyard. Princess Celira stood at the edge of the balcony, her eyes on the horizon. The stars of last night were gone, replaced by a bright sky, yet the memory of the human fleet moving with precision lingered in her mind. For days, she had watched Commander Elias Ward lead Velrith's forces, organize the defenses, and ensure the safety of her people. His actions had been steady, decisive, and thoughtful. He had not fought for glory, he had fought to protect. And now, as she looked at him standing in the courtyard below, coordinating troops and directing transport ships, she understood something essential. Human strength was more than ruthlessness. It was courage, compassion, and unwavering focus in the face of danger. The calm, however, was deceptive. Reports arrived quickly. Another hostile fleet had entered the system. They were larger, faster, and clearly intent on Velrith itself. Panic began to ripple among the council and the guards. Celira felt a familiar knot of fear in her chest, but this time it was tempered with resolve. She had seen Elias in action. She had witnessed human courage firsthand. She descended into the operations hall where he was already at work. The room hummed with activity. Holographic displays flickered, mapping the enemy's position, the fleet's movement, and the evacuation routes. "Princess Celira," Elias greeted her, his voice calm amid the tension. "We have limited time. The enemy intends to strike at the core worlds. Civilian evacuations must proceed immediately. We cannot allow panic to spread." Celira nodded. "What is our plan?" Elias gestured to the holograms. "We create layered defenses. Our smaller fleets will act as decoys, drawing their fire while the main fleet positions itself strategically. Simultaneously, civilian transports follow the safest corridors. We will minimize casualties and force them to retreat." Celira felt a flicker of fear, but it was no longer paralyzing. She realized she could act, she could help, she could trust humans, not blindly but with understanding. As the enemy fleet approached, Celira and Elias moved through the strategy with precision. Velrith defenders followed their orders, and civilians were guided to safety. Every ship, every maneuver, every calculation had purpose. The first clash erupted near the outer rim. Energy beams lit the dark expanse of space. Smaller human-led ships intercepted the enemy, drawing them into carefully planned positions. Celira watched the battle unfold on the holographic display. Her hands were steady. She called out orders alongside Elias, her voice calm but firm. She noticed the small things, how Elias adjusted his commands based on new information, how he prioritized lives over quick victories, how he remained composed even when the unexpected occurred. During a sudden surge, a small attack group of Velrith ships found themselves trapped between enemy forces. Panic began to rise among the crew, but Elias acted immediately. "Redirect energy shields to flank the perimeter. Pull interceptors in from Sector 3. Civilian convoys, hold your course." Celira mirrored his actions, helping relay commands and ensuring communication lines remained open. Together, they coordinated a rescue operation that saved the trapped ships. When the last vessel was clear, the enemy fleet, frustrated and disorganized, began to retreat. Velrith's defenders cheered quietly, their relief palpable. In the aftermath, Celira stood beside Elias in the observation hall. The room was quiet, the screens still showing the scattered enemy ships retreating toward the void. "You did it," she said softly. Elias shook his head. "We did it. Humans alone could not have managed it. Velrith alone could not have managed it. But together," he smiled faintly, the first warmth she had seen from him. "Together, we protected life." Celira felt a deep sense of respect. She had feared humans for their ruthlessness, yet now she saw their true strength. It was not in conquest, but in protection. It was not in fear, but in courage. "Commander," she said quietly, "I feared you at first. I thought humans were cold, ruthless, impossible to trust. But now I understand." Elias' expression softened. "Understanding comes from action, Princess, not stories." Not rumors, watching, participating, learning, these reveal the truth. She looked at him, her heart lighter than it had ever been. Then know this, I choose to trust you, not because I have to, but because I see who you are. News of the victory spread quickly. Across Velrith, citizens and nobles alike celebrated the survival of the system. Yet the political and social implications of the human alliance began to take shape. Other species in the galaxy had long whispered stories about humans. Some had feared them. Some had underestimated them. Now the stories were changing. Humans were no longer merely ruthless conquerors. They were protectors, leaders who acted decisively, allies who could be trusted when the stakes were highest. Princess Celira understood this better than anyone. She had seen it firsthand, and she had chosen to stand beside one of them. The High Counselors approached her later that evening, their expressions a mixture of respect and surprise. "Princess," the High Counselor said, "you have demonstrated wisdom beyond your years. Your choice to trust the human commander has preserved our people and our system. We are grateful." Celira inclined her head. "The gratitude is mutual. We achieved this together. Humans, Velrith, we acted as partners, not masters or subjects." The counselors exchanged glances. They understood the shift that had occurred. Humanity's reputation in the galaxy had changed in one system. Other systems would take notice. The next morning, the ceremonial confirmation of the Union was held, not as a duty, not as a political transaction, but as a choice freely made. Celira and Elias stood before the people, their positions equal, their resolve clear. Elias addressed the crowd. "Today is not just a symbol of alliance. It is a symbol of understanding, of courage, and of the strength that comes when we act together to protect what matters most." Celira stepped forward, her voice steady. "I chose to stand beside Commander Ward not out of fear or obligation, but because I have witnessed his courage, his wisdom, and his care. This union is a choice made from understanding, not coercion." The people cheered, not for ceremony, not for titles, but for life, for courage, for the future that now felt safer, stronger, and brighter. Later, Celira and Elias stood on the balcony together, looking out at the stars. The sky was calm, but the galaxy remained vast and unpredictable. Yet for the first time, the future felt full of possibility. "You see, Princess," Elias said softly, "humans are often misunderstood. Stories tell of fear, but actions reveal truth. You have learned that, and so have your people." Celira nodded. "And I have learned that strength is not in fear or control, but in courage and trust, and in choosing to act for what is right." He smiled faintly. "Then we face the galaxy together as partners." Celira looked at him, her heart certain for the first time. Together. And as the stars glimmered in the night sky, the princess understood something essential. Fear could be replaced by understanding. Doubt could be replaced by trust. And the galaxy, vast, unpredictable, and often cruel, was not something to fear, but something to face with courage, wisdom, and partnership. The human had been feared. The stories had been true, but incomplete. Ruthlessness existed, but so did honor, courage, and the unyielding determination to protect. Princess Celira had seen it all, and now she knew the galaxy's future was stronger than she had ever imagined. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her choice, the safety of her people, and the quiet strength of the human beside her. For the first time, she was not afraid.